Let's read the word. I did think I could sing it like you sang it earlier, but it would be terrible. So I'll read it. Psalm 98, verses 1 to 7. Sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvellous things. For his right hand and his holy arm have worked salvation for him. The Lord has made his salvation known and revealed his righteousness to the nations. He has remembered his love and his faithfulness to Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God. Shout for joy to the Lord. All the earth burst into jubilant song with music. Make music to the Lord with the harp and the sound of the singing, with trumpets and the blast of the ram's horn. Terrible reader. Shout for joy before the Lord the King. Let the sea resound and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. Amen.
Morena koutou. It's so good to see you guys. I'm glad, Peter, that you're excited. We'll see how this all sort of goes. So I'm going to do a few checks to make sure everything's going. Oh, I haven't turned this on. Oh, there we go. So how's that? There we go. So that's one of my checks. I'm just doing some checks to make everything, see if everything's going. Oh, we're on business. Okay, so I'm just going to grab something, and while I'm doing that, what I'd like you to do is just run your eyes over that and have a look at the words that are up there. We've just heard them, so well read. Thank you so much. Just want you to run your eyes over that as I grab some stuff and get myself set up. For those of you who haven't seen this before, this is a guitar. All right. This psalm here, I went hunting this week. I knew that I wanted to talk to you about music in some way. Music is a big part of my life. It's a big part of what I do. And you've seen me, no doubt, up there doing music from time to time. So I wanted to go hunting for verses in the Bible that related to music. And there's actually heaps of them. But this is one that leapt out to me. And we've already sung it. We've already read it. There's some beautiful things in it. And I want to kind of look at a couple of things in that, but I really want to talk about the relationship between faith and music and how it's an opportunity for us to grow, an opportunity for us to be challenged and to go into something new. Before I start, though, it would be remiss of me not to introduce myself properly. Ko Taranaki te Maunga no Hawera Aho. I'm originally from Taranaki, from a small town called Hawera. Ko te awa kairangi te awa, but I've made my home here in Lower Hutt, te awa kairangi. Ko karaitiana te iwi, ko tauiwi, te iwi he kaiko o. So I am Pakeha, white as a sheep, but I'm also a Christian, and that's a really important part of who I am. So I talk about my iwi being Christianity, and I'm a teacher, so you're going to get a lot of that today. Ko Knox te marae, ko Joanna toku hua wahine, ko Jenna, me te Natalie Oku tamahine, my wife Jo, and my daughters Jenna and Natalie. We've made Knox our home. Knox is my marae, so I feel like I have the right to stand and speak because of the honour that you guys give to me and that we give to each other, and we've heard so many speakers. It's been awesome. So what I want to do is, as I go through to this, I've got a few slides. I hope you're comfortable. One of the things that I'll do from time to time is I'll put up a verse like this, and it's just something that's there in passing for you to have a quick read through and go, ooh, that's an interesting point. I just found so many good verses, I wanted to use them in some way. I won't refer to them too much, but they're just there because they're fascinating. Right, so there's nothing in the world that's better than the C major scale. Okay, so like maybe I'm speaking at a point of perhaps my own sort of personal bias, and also kind of speaking quite earthly when I say that. But for me, I think there's something beautiful and simple and yet so wildly incredible about the C major scale. Some of you will know it by the notation at the top, which is how we read music. Some of you know the notes by their names, and some of you will remember Sound of Music. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. There we go, fantastic. So you will know that. So those 8 notes, they make up so much of what we hear when we're thinking about modern music. And there's actually only 12 notes in the entirety of music, of which these 8 come from. So just out of 12 notes going into these things here, which is called a scale, we get the entirety of modern music. That's incredible. That's all music is. That's amazing. It's probably better for me to sort of like, instead of talking about earthly things like scales and stuff, to talk about spiritual things and say, actually, there's nothing better than the love of Jesus Christ, the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Then actually all things in our faith spring from this idea. something quite simple, yet actually when you delve into it gets quite complicated, but there are layers upon layers of beautiful things that come from that, and we learn. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try to do 2 sermons at once. I'm going to do a sermon to any musicians out there and talk a little bit about music and talk about challenges there, and then at the same time talk about faith. And hopefully the two will line up and we'll just sort of see what happens. But because I'm a teacher, I'm going to just give you a quick warning and say that there's going to be a lot of theoretical stuff at the start, and but I don't want you to worry. I'm going to guide you through it, and there's no tests at the end. You don't have to remember all these things. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build up a bit of a body of an argument. But of course, because I'm a teacher, we have learning intentions and success criteria. So this is the kind of things that we're looking at. Our learning intentions today, for those of you who are still on holiday waiting to go back to school, my apologies, but I'm not sorry. Learning intentions. So what we want to do is we want to deepen our appreciation for music. That's a really big thing for me. How music works, I'm going to teach you that, and how we can use it, and this is important, as a lens for deepening our faith journey. So we're using it as a lens to look through, but we're using it to look at our faith. Second thing is the challenge of a continually growing faith, a faith that is always looking for that next opportunity to become something else. Success criteria, how do you leave here knowing you've succeeded? Good, useful questions going forward, either of music or faith. If you walk out of here and you're like, wow, I want to learn this about music, or I want to know this more about my faith, then you've succeeded. A desire or excitement to want to go deeper with your music or faith. That you look at it and like, oh, actually, I have an excitement. And I don't use that word lightly. To start off with, what I'd like to do is to start by playing you a song. Lately I've been running on faith. What else can a poor boy do? Except my will be right. Love comes over you. Lately I've been talking in my sleep. Can't imagine what I'd have to say, except my will be right. Love comes by your way. Right, so what I've just done for you is I've played you a song from an artist called Eric Clapton, a song called Running on Faith. Beautiful song. I love to play it whenever I'm busking. I usually start with it because it makes me feel relaxed and happy. But this song has a lot of stuff in it, a lot of complexity and a lot of things that we're going to use as a bit of a guide. I'm going to come back to this song a bit, so just park that in your heads as we move forward. I want to start by just explaining a little bit about how music works. Now, if you understand this already, I may run the risk of saying some things that you'd be like, yes, we know this. But if you don't know, hopefully this will be a world that you'll look at and go, ooh, I did not know that. I told you at the start that there are 12 notes. There are only 12 notes in music. All music, in modern music anyway, is made up of these 12 notes. And I've put numbers down the bottom so you can see what they are. The first note being A. A is our start. And then the next one is A sharp or B flat. They have two names. So this is an A, and this is an A sharp, but it's also a B flat, and that's a B. And we can slowly step our way up the scale as we do. A sharp is kind of like A and a half, if you like to think of it mathematically, or B flat is kind of like B minus a half. So if you can think of it in that way, that's how we're going. A sharp, B flat, B, C's the fourth note, and then we keep going up there. I'm not going to go through them all, but they're all there and they're all beautiful. So that is a chromatic scale that is 12 notes, the entirety of music. You can see there that what I've done here is I've highlighted the sharps and the flats so you can kind of see there are those 8 notes that are, or those 7 notes, sorry, that are the whole notes we call them, and then then we've got these half notes in the middle. Now, what I'm going to do is, because I started by saying a C major scale, I'm just going to take those 3 and I'm just going to move them to the other side, if I can do that. And then what you can start to see is you can see buried in there is the C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, the do, re, mi that I showed you at the start. And if I take that and I put it on a keyboard, you can start to see that actually it starts to match up with the C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That sits on a keyboard. If any of you have played piano, you'll know this. They're usually on a keyboard, they're black, but I've done them in green because I'm an artist and I can't stop myself. The C sharp, the D flat will go into that little space there, the D sharp, E flat go into that space. And you can see how it actually looks like a piano keyboard. If you've ever wanted to know why the white notes and black notes are spaced the way they are. That is why. And so what we're left with is the C major scale, these 8 notes. And when we have a C major scale, it sounds something like this. It goes, and that's the C major scale. Beautiful, beautiful, simple, wonderful. Okay, that's a lot. I want you to take a break. Here's a picture of 2 otters holding hands while they sleep. Cool, let's move on. Right, so now we've got our C major scale. We've gotten this far, we've done well. Good on us, you guys are amazing. But let's go further, because we don't just have scales. When you listen to music, you don't listen to people just continually go da 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 all the time. There's actually more going on. And we have things that are chords. And I think in one of the hymns we sung about being of one accord, and that's something from the King James Bible, being of one accord. What that means is the idea of things standing together in unison. In music, we have the same thing. If I take 3 notes, let's pick. So I've got these notes here, my first note, my second, my third. This is what we talk about in music. If I take the first note, the third note, and the fifth note, and I play those 3 together, I get a C chord, a C major chord. So there's my C, there's my E, there's my G, and if I play them together, oh, turn the person next to you and go, oh. Good. So if I play those 3 notes together, and it doesn't matter what combination, this is the thing that's so fascinating about music, it doesn't matter what combination I play those 3 together, they fit. They fit together and they give you a C major. And I could play it here, I could play it here, I could play it here. It doesn't matter where I play it, if I'm playing those 3 notes, I get C major. If I add a different note or I change one of the notes, it changes the chord. So that's how chords work. So this is a fascinating thing for me. So there we are, C, E, and G. That's what it looks like in music, and that's what it looks like there. So one thing that I did in my development of music is I discovered something about how all these things relate. This is a bit mathsy. If you like maths, you're right with me at the moment. This is great. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, that's our C scale. But what happens if I take those 3 notes there and then I put them down this way like this? And I thought, oh, what does that look like? And then I'm going to take all my notes from the C major scale and I'm going to put them down in order. So I start by going C, F, G, A, and I'm filling this out, this little table, right through to here, and then I start on the next line, G, A, B, C, D. So now I've taken all the notes from the scale and I've put them in here. If you're finding this a bit tough, don't worry. Again, there's no test. You don't have to remember this at the end. But if I go down the line here, I get this thing here is what's called a C major chord. I just played that for you. It's a C major chord. If I play those 3 notes together, that's what I get. However, if I go down the next one, D, F, and A, it's different now. It gives us a D minor chord. So D, F, and a D minor chord. Now, just for those guys who are not quite sure what we mean with major and minor, we've got major is happy, minor is sad. So if you can do that, happy, sad. Okay, so we've got C happy or C major, we've got D minor or D sad, and then we move up, the next line is E minor. And I can keep doing this. I can keep going through and filling them all out. And I end up with C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, and then B diminished. We don't talk about him, so don't talk about him. Cool, right. So what we've got there is we now have the first note of the first chord of a scale, the second chord, the third chord, the fourth chord, fifth, sixth. We don't talk about the seventh, and then we look at the eighth. So these chords here are what's called a chord scale. Now I can play these chords, and it will sound like a scale. Here's my scale. No problems. Here's my chord scale: C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished that we don't talk about, and C. Right. So you can hear. And that is a chord scale. So you can actually play chords in a scale the same way you can when you're singing do, re, mi. You can actually have chords that go with it. Now this is pretty staggering, but it's also quite a lot. So here's a picture of a cute pig that I put in for my daughter Natalie. Take a break. Cool, let's move on. So what I've done is I've shown you basically how music works. Congratulations, you've learnt something pretty amazing. So now we're going to move on and just have a look at the song Running on Faith. These are the chords here that I just showed you in the chord scale, but I've highlighted a few of them. The first chord, C, the fourth chord, F, the fifth chord, G, the sixth chord, A minor. Now these chords come up in literally thousands of songs that you know. If you started to actually look at the songs that you know, the ones that you sing, you will see these chords repeated over and over again. And I'll just show you using Running on Faith. So this is what I played. I played you C is the first chord there, and then G is the next chord, and then A minor. This is Running on Faith. C, G, then A minor. And then it does it again. It goes C, then a G, then A minor, then a C. And the last line, then an F, and then a G, and then we take it home with a C, and then an F, and then a G. And so that's really interesting. So we actually sort of see that these chords, Eric Clapton, one of the greatest guitarists of all time, he's just using these simple chords to just play a song. Okay, that's right. Okay, right. What I want to do is I'll let you know about these two people that you can go home and look up on YouTube and look if you want to. One of them has questionable language, so just be very careful. But on the left there, a group called Axis of Awesome. They have this really awesome comedy sketch called The 4-Chord Song. And they take, I think it's 40 songs that you know, and they play them back to back in the same key, and you hear the chord patterns are exactly the same. What's going on? Conspiracy theory, perhaps. Or this man here, Rob Paravonian, he does a thing called Pachelbel's Rant. So he talks about Pachelbel's canon, how it uses the same chords as modern music. What's going on? So what I thought I'd try and do is I'd try and recreate that for you a little bit here. So I'm going to play you just a couple of songs. So we've got, see if I can do this and click at the same time. Can you feel the love tonight? C and F, then a G. So there's all the same chords. Then we go. I find myself in times of trouble. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom. Let it be. And then we have take on me. You have to join me with this one. Take me on. And then we have with or without you. With or without you. Oh, oh. And if you're into your church songs, we go, blessed be your name. Da-da, something else. Then, what a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Praise his name forevermore. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. If that you would take my place, A minor, that you would da-da-da. Yeah, so you can see that. Okay, so I'm thinking that you're looking at this going, hang on a second, you've ruined music for me, or it's like, what's going on? Is this some kind of strange musical conspiracy theory where artists just email each other and say, hey, what chords are you using? Oh, so am I, Actually, no, that's not what's happening. What we're looking at here is these chords fit together because they have been inherently designed to fit together. These chords, they come up in so many songs because they work. They work together, they fit together, they're designed to do this. And that's actually a fascinating thing, this idea that these chords do that. We see the same kind of journey in our own faith life. So what I've talked to you about is how things have started in a musical journey. We start with notes, we go to scales, and we progress through to this core foundation of music. We have the same thing in our faith journey. If you can recall, for those of you who have made faith commitments to Jesus, if you can recall this, and those of you who have yet to make that decision, this is what it's like. You are encountering Jesus, the love of this individual who thousands of years ago died for you, and the sacrifice and the love. And it's something that when you realise it and you finally grasp it for yourself, it changes you so much. Now, someone could come to you and they could talk to you about the depth of theology in the book of Romans, or Ecclesiastes and sort of what's going on there, and it doesn't matter because you are totally consumed with this character of Jesus and what he's done. So we start with a foundation in our faith, just like we do in music. We have this beautiful foundation. You can think of it as a language. When you think about language, we start with letters. We take those letters, we form them into words. We then put those words in sentences, and then we can communicate our ideas with one another. We think about music, we start with notes, those notes become scales, those scales become chords, and then we can share our music with one another. And we think about faith, we start with the person of Jesus and his sacrifice. That then becomes a faith that starts to transform our lives. Eventually, we start to realize the hope that there is in the story of Jesus. And then that becomes the love that we can communicate and share with other people. It is about building on foundations. So what I want to do just now really quickly is I want to play you another song by an artist called Billy Joel. Billy Joel is a staggeringly amazing piano player, and I want to play you a song his called Vienna. See if I can do this justice. Slow down, you crazy child. You're so ambitious for a juvenile. If you're so smart, then tell me why are you still so afraid? Yeah. Chill out and what's the hurry about? You better cool it out before you burn it out. You got so much to do, but only so many hours in the day. Yeah. But you know where the truth is told. You can get what you want, or you can just get old. You're gonna kick off before you even get halfway through. Ooh, when will you realize Vienna waits for you? When will you realize Vienna waits for you? It's a beautiful, beautiful song, and if you were following along with the chord sheet that I had there, you'll see there's some chords that are very familiar to you. We have our C's, we have our A minors and our F's and our G's, and they're all over the place. Fantastic. But then you'll start to notice there are some things that don't quite fit. We've got, at the end of that first line, it has a D and an E. We're supposed to be having a D minor and an E minor. What's going on? We also have halfway through these first two lines, we have a B flat. There's no B flat there, and down the bottom it finishes with an A flat. We've now got some chords that don't quite fit. What is Billy Joel doing? Has he not gotten the email from everyone else about what you're supposed to do when you're writing songs? Actually, no, what he's doing is he's doing something that is really important for musicians to do. It's something that I learned in my life, and many other musicians have done the same. That you have your foundation, you understand your foundation, you know the rules, now you can go and break the rules. You can now start thinking about what can I layer on top of that. My musicianship is growing as I learn these things. As a musician, when you listen to a song like this and you hear it and you start to think, how's he doing that? That's different, there's something going on. We have a similar journey in our faith. When you start a Christian journey, when you start that journey into Jesus and you begin to learn more and more about it, you become ready. You become ready for something incredible. And then something else happens that changes your faith and it grows into a new place. You learn more. When I first became a Christian, I actually started before I was a Christian. I read the Bible cover to cover. Main reason was I just finished reading Lord of the Rings, I think, and I wanted another big novel, and I saw the Bible sitting in the corner, and I thought, that looks good, really can't give that a go. So as a non-Christian, I read the Bible cover to cover, and the thing that I was not prepared for was how it changed me on the way through. I remember sort of turning over the last page of the book of Luke, John, last of the Gospels, and going, wow, I did not know that. I did not know that. And I was floored. And by the time I got to the end, it had changed me. And then it was only a matter of months after that when I became Christian, when I decided that this is where I wanted to put the rest of my life. That was a huge moment for me. But then what happened was, 10 years later, I read the book of Romans. Now, I'd already read the book of Romans when I read the Bible from cover to cover, but I read the book of Romans anew. Fresh eyes. And when I became Christian, I was only ready for the story of Jesus. I couldn't handle anything else. But then, 10 years later, I read the book of Romans, and I'm like, no way. Where did that come from? What's happening? And it changed my life. I'm now something completely new because of that experience. And I was ready for it because I had a strong foundation. I was able to move on. I'd grown. Just if you have a quick look at this little verse, this is a non-musical verse which I've included, and it's probably quite familiar to some of you. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, but then I became a man. I put away childish things, and down the bottom here it says, "Do not be children in understanding, but in understanding be mature." We are called as Christians to grow. The foundation is super important. It's super important that you have a strong foundation, that you really get to grips with the person of Jesus. But as Christians, there comes a time where the next step is beckoning. Something else is there to kind of move you on its way. Sometimes we get dragged there, kicking and screaming, either by other people that we know that it's a great place for us to be, or even by ourselves as we like, fine, Lord, I'll grow, fine, I'll change. And we sometimes are not prepared for it mentally, but actually God's been preparing us for this change, for this growth. And there's been some beautiful things spoken in this church in the last few weeks. Catherine Dovey was here last week in her sermon talking about spiritual New Year's resolutions, the idea of what's something that you can pick up this year. And I want to build on that a little bit by thinking about this. I'm in a new journey at the moment, musically. So I've been playing guitar for 30 years this year, and there's been a lot of awesome things, but I realised at the end of last year that my knowledge was about here and I needed it to go further. I'd hit a glass ceiling and I couldn't go through it, so I needed to punch through it. So I've started to look at things called modes and different scales that are not the C major scale and sort of going further. And I'm learning a thing called the Lydian scale. Turn to the person next to you and say, Lydian. So I'm learning the Lydian scale, and it's a different scale. And then from there, I'm going to learn the Mixolydian. Say Mixolydian to the person next to you. Yeah. So I'm learning these new things, and actually, I have to tell you, it is freaking me out because it's something new, and I know that if I'm going to truly understand these things, I know I have to put myself through that awful 3 or 4 month period where I just play the scale over and over and over, and it kind of makes sense, but kind of doesn't. But I know that actually in about 3 or 4 months' time, I'll have that scale in here in a much different way than where it's just in here. And I'm going to be able to play that in my music in such a huge degree. It's going to change my music. I know I've got a growth point coming. My question to you then is, what is your Lydian scale? What's your next point of growth? Perhaps God has been preparing you for something that is coming. You understand your faith, going back to my links earlier before, you think you understand your faith in a sense, or your growing faith. Maybe there are steps that you are taking, and you know where you are now, and you're thinking about what comes next. Maybe your Lydian scale is joining a small group so that people can knock the edges off you and challenge you in a way that perhaps you haven't been ready for before that. Or maybe your Lydian scale is writing a prayer journal so you can actually start to diary what's happening in your life through the way that God works, and you're allowing God to take the wheel. Oh, scary. Maybe your Lydian scale is to take a book of the Bible like Romans and devour it for a year and see what happens at the end. The question then for you is, what is your Lydian scale? What's your next step? You have your foundation, your beautiful, strong foundation. Or if you are still discovering your foundation, maybe that's your Lydian scale. Maybe you're actually looking and going, this Jesus guy actually doesn't sound half bad. What does that look like? Does it change anything for me? So maybe that's your Lydian scale. Whatever it is, my encouragement to you is to think about that and to think, what can I do? Am I ready to grow? If you're not, that's okay. But if you're ready to grow in your faith, and I use faith in quite a broad sense, I don't want to try and say that one faith looks like another, but when you are ready, what's that next step for you? I'm pretty much finished here, and what I want to do is I'm going to put up some questions. We're about to do the offering, and I'm going to put up some questions, and I want to allow you guys to use those questions to have a think about, what does that look like for you? Maybe there's some challenges there. Maybe something's been nagging you at the back of your head and it's brought it out. Or maybe it's like, I haven't really thought of that. So I'll use those questions. During the offering, you could, if you wanted to, chat to the person next to you quietly, but there may be some other people that actually just want to internalise this. So, just think about those other people and think about how you're going. Let's, if we finish by going back to this Bible verse here, it's a little bit fuzzy like that, so I'm going to bring this one up here. And it starts by saying, sing to the Lord a new song. What is that new song that you're going to start singing? For he has done marvellous things. Hopefully there is a new song in you, and I'd love to hear about how that goes over this year. Let's finish with our learning intentions. How did we go? Did we deepen our understanding of music? I really hope we did. But did we understand it as a lens for a faith journey, sort of seeing the steps? Hopefully we did. A challenge of a continually growing faith. Do you feel challenged in the idea of growing? Our success criteria, this is how you know you've succeeded. Do you have good questions? Hopefully over this next reflection time you will be able to bring those through. And your desire, excitement. Maybe you're listening to this stuff and going, wow, that sounds like me. Wow, that sounds really interesting. What can I do? So that's how we know. These are your questions there. It's a little bit fuzzy down the bottom, so if you get to that sort of quote and you find it a bit hard to read, ignore the quote. But those 4 questions there, I'm just going to leave you with those. Ka kite anō, may you be blessed in your year, may you be blessed in the challenges that you take up. May God, if he needs to, drag you kicking and screaming, but it'd be a wonderful experience where the blessing he gives you is something you can turn on to other people. Kei kōrei rā. Awesome.